Why is the Take It Down Act so important?
Well, I've been hearing from all kinds of constituents around the state about young people in particular, but definitely females who've been on the receiving end of revenge porn, non-consensual, intimate images that have been generated through artificial intelligence. They look very real. They literally ruin the lives and reputations of many people. And right now, there aren't sufficient penalties for producing these images and publishing them on the websites and throughout the internet.
So you have co-sponsored this. It almost got to the president's desk last Congress, unless I'm mistaken. So what needs to happen this time around to get it across the finish line?
Well, the people of Indiana and across the country who are pleading with members of Congress to help them out, help us get some control over this social media imagery. They need to speak up. They need to call their members of Congress and encourage that this be a priority. This passed, as you indicate, in a bipartisan, unanimous way out of the Senate, and then with a very strong majority out of the U.S. House. I think President Trump will prioritize it, but only if we send this to him, in the coming weeks, can we get this done so that others won't be, experiencing the trauma associated with revenge porn.
How many other lawmakers have you worked with on this bill? This is something is crossing party lines.
Well, I've worked most directly with my colleague Ted Cruz, who is chairing the committee that deals with this matter. But really, Republicans and Democrats alike understand that this has to get done. We have an obligation to ensure that we have a free and open internet, but not one polluted with things that are unsafe for children and that damage unfairly the reputations and lives of regular citizens.
I'd like to switch gears and talk about the CHIPS Act, which something that you've championed and has been very close to your heart the last couple of years. Where does that stand today, and is that still working?
Well, it's worked very well. It's unleashed since passage of the CHIPS Act roughly 2 years ago. It's unleashed $450 billion in private sector commitments. That's with the commitment of federal dollars of just over $30 billion. So an incredible return on investment, even for the private sector, let alone for government. And I think Hoosiers understand that. Back home, we had a multi-billion-dollar commitment by SK Hynix in West Lafayette to create really good paying and sophisticated jobs. We've established a tech hub for biomanufacturing, Heartland Bioworks in Indianapolis, and people are being educated from the technician to the postdoctoral level through the CHIPS Act around the state so that they can realize their dreams and their full potential. President Trump has indicated that he's going to prioritize semiconductor reshoring. He thinks it's the right thing to do. He's nominated, and we will soon confirm in the Senate, his pick, Howard Lutnick, to be Secretary of Commerce. Howard Lutnick, in his nomination hearing the other day, indicated that the CHIPS Act was vital for America and that it constituted an excellent down payment on semiconductor reshoring in America. So the nature of the program will probably change, and many of those changes will probably be good, but we have a great head start, an excellent down payment, as Mr. Lutnick said, and our country needs to continue to focus on the vulnerabilities associated with relying on China and countries next to China for our semiconductor production.
Are those changes going to be made out of a conversation we heard months ago from President Trump and Speaker of the House Johnson saying that they initially maybe wanted to repeal the act entirely?
Well, they backed away from that very quickly. In fact, I think they were advised by a number of businesses, by members of Congress and national security community and others who've spent a lot of time with the act, follow its progress, and I'm glad that Secretary Lutnick, or soon to be Secretary Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary for President Trump, spoke so clearly, as has his national security advisor, his Secretary of State nominee, his trade representative, and many others around him, indicating that the CHIPS Act and some follow-on to the CHIPS Act will continue to exist for the benefit of our national and our economic security.